Hey everyone. Okay, so a bit of a lengthy recap aside, the episode immediately pops off by showing CP0 taking out Apu without a moment's hesitation. And that's one of those moments where, on top of just being kind of satisfying for someone like me who's never been Apu's biggest fan, see him finally get some measure of karma, it's just satisfying, but it also shows the government's finally reached that breaking point where they're not screwing around anymore or waiting on the sidelines. They're on the warpath in this episode. Even someone like Drake, who's supposed to be an ally by virtue of him being a sword agent, isn't safe. Like, you get in their way or in their line of sight and you are a target. No questions asked. And I do admit, while not the biggest fan of Apu, I do like how the anime does give him and Drake a little bit more urgency when facing CP0, even though I think the fight itself probably won't get much play beyond this episode and it might happen off screen. With that said, though, let's talk about Zoro versus King, and this, to me, is kind of the oddball part of the episode, because on one hand, I do like how the anime is giving King just an extra little bit more play in the fight itself to showcase that just how truly powerful he is, and just how outclassed Zoro is by comparison, that even if Zoro does master his sword, that he finds the secret to improving and grabbing a hold of Enma's power, it still probably won't be enough to guarantee victory, because as King continues to prove, there's a reason he's one of Kaido's most trusted officers. So unless Zoro can surpass King in the area where it matters, which is raw strength, raw power, then he'll still fail. So in that aspect, I do like how the extensions made to the fight do really emphasize the disparity in strength between the two of them, which granted will still be shown as the fight goes on, but just giving us a little bit of an early tease of what Zoro is really up against was kind of nice. That being the case, however, the one part I'm a little bit more iffy on that was extended is the flashbacks, and I said my piece on what I feel about flashback extension in the anime, but I felt there could have been maybe a little more time dedicated to the fight itself. But given how the episode ends, I think Toei did it because they felt this was probably the best place to end the episode. And granted credit where it's due. I will say I do like this flashback though, because it on top of addressing the importance of Kitetsu III and how, while true it is in a sense cursed, it's only so based upon the strength of the user's will, which is a very typical shonen trope in a lot of ways. But in how I like how it is applied through the lens of a lot of that depends on how disciplined how disciplined one is as a swordsman. And I also really like how it was presented through the lens of Zoro reflecting on what brought him here, what brought him to this point. That the swords, in some weird way, have kind of been guiding him to Wano, it's all complemented by the reveal that both Enma and Wado Ichimonji were both crafted by Zoro's grandfather. So, yeah, it's definitely interesting. So yeah, I do like how it's all kind of coming. All these things are kind of coming together. To show just what has led to Zoro's journey in this point. And I like how, even though he's not one to believe in destiny, he's sort of forced to kind of grapple with the idea that this isn't just coincidence. That this isn't just coincidence. That Wado Ichimonji, that all this has led to this point. With that said, though, I'm not gonna lie. While I've never been one of those Twitter guys who pokes and prods at the idea of anime giving characters DBZ auras, I do admit the green aura around Zoro did feel slightly out of place in this episode. Like, if it was more purple to represent Enma, I might be forgiving of it, but green aura, that's weird. I don't know, I've seen the green aura before and it hasn't bugged me yet, but somehow here it just really feels out of place. I don't know why that is. And yeah, I guess the only other problem I have with this episode is that it feels like the Momonosuke parts of the story are becoming the new padding for episodes, because every time we cut back to those moments, it feels like nothing happens or progresses an inch at best. Like, the story just kind of comes to to just a really dead crawl whenever Momonosuke is focused on. Like I know, like we're supposed to be making progress with him, but yeah, it could be done a little bit better in my mind. I wish we actually got somewhere when we cut to those moments. Moving on from that, though, we also get a little bit more with Queen and with Queen and Sanji's fight in this episode, where the former calls Sanji out for being mentally weak, and the thing is, it's one of those things where it's twisted as fuck, because we pretty much know that Queen is the one who's causing Sanji this anguish, but at the same time, he's not entirely wrong, because don't get me wrong, even though don't get me wrong, Queen is still a piece of shit for being the one to cause Sanji that emotional and mental stress, but the fact that Sanji even let that get to him to begin with does kind of prove Queen's point in a very roundabout way, that even though Queen is the one who caused it, the fact that Sanji let it happen to him to begin with is kind of telling. And even though we know the conclusion Sanji's going to come to, that obviously he's weak, but that that's also why he relies on others. That whole chestnut. It is also nice to see one of Sanji's biggest faults kind of being brought into the spotlight, and that if he doesn't improve upon those weaknesses, he won't survive much longer in the New World. Which, when you look at Sanji's track record, it's debatable whether he will actually, and whether or not, and which in itself again raises the question: is Zoro going to kill Sanji? An even better question is when is he going to kill him? Because the fact that the series does keep hammering this home has to mean it's got to happen at some point. But at what specific point? If Oda is going to kill Sanji, what specific point is he going to kill him? That's the big question, I guess. But yeah, guys. That's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Analyst Control. Be sure to notification bell, the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight signing off. Later, everyone.